My sister-in-law's obsession with curing my daughter's type 1 diabetes led to multiple hospital visits and secret medical experiments. My husband lost custody when he reduced her insulin doses. My name is Amelia and I'm 34F. I need advice because my family is falling apart and I don't know what to do anymore. I have been married to my husband Mark, 36M, for 8 years. We have 2 kids, Luna, 12F, who has type 1 diabetes, and William, 9M. My husband's brother Levi, 32M, has been married to Hazel, 29F, for 3 years. They don't have kids yet but have been trying. Some background about Luna's condition first because it's important to understand how serious this is. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 7 years old. This means her body doesn't produce insulin at all, and she needs to take insulin shots before every meal and snack. We have to count every single carbohydrate she eats and calculate the right amount of insulin. If she eats too many carbs without enough insulin, her blood sugar can spike dangerously high. If she gets too much insulin or doesn't eat enough, her blood sugar can drop so low that she could go into a coma or worse. We've had a few scary incidents over the years. Once when she was 8, she had a severe low blood sugar episode at school because the cafeteria lady gave her regular juice instead of sugar-free by mistake. Luna passed out and had to be rushed to the hospital by ambulance. Since then, we've been extremely careful about what she eats and who prepares her food. We always pack her lunch and snacks, and we've taught both our kids to never accept food from anyone without checking with us first. Hazel has always been a bit difficult to deal with. She works as a nutritionist and thinks she knows better than everyone else when it comes to food and health. She's always making comments about people's eating habits and giving unsolicited advice. When Luna was first diagnosed, Hazel kept suggesting we try different diets to cure her diabetes. She would send us articles about how raw food diets or going gluten-free could reverse type 1 diabetes. We had to explain multiple times that type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition that can't be cured with diet changes, but she never seemed to listen. The real problem started about 6 months ago. Levi and Hazel moved to our city because Levi got a new job. They found an apartment about 20 minutes away from us, and suddenly we were seeing them much more often. At first, it was nice to have family nearby. The kids enjoyed having their uncle and aunt around, and Mark was happy to spend more time with his brother. But Hazel started making more and more comments about Luna's diet and medical care. She would say things like Luna looked pale and tired, and maybe we should try giving her more natural foods instead of relying on insulin. She kept bringing up stories about people who had supposedly cured their diabetes with special diets or supplements. Every family dinner became a lecture about how we were harming Luna by not exploring alternative treatments. Mark and I tried to be patient with her. We explained Luna's condition many times. We showed her articles from reputable medical sources about type 1 diabetes. We even had Luna's endocrinologist write a letter explaining why alternative treatments wouldn't work for her condition. Nothing seemed to get through to Hazel. She would nod and agree during our conversations, but then the very next time we saw her, she would start up again with the same suggestions. The situation got worse when Hazel started bringing special foods to family gatherings that she claimed were perfect for Luna. She would make desserts with strange sugar substitutes that she insisted were better than the approved ones we used. She brought smoothies made with exotic fruits that she said would boost Luna's pancreas function. Every time, we had to politely decline and explain that we needed to stick to Luna's established meal plan. Hazel started acting hurt and offended when we wouldn't let Luna try her special foods. She would make comments about how we didn't trust her professional expertise as a nutritionist. She said we were being overprotective and preventing Luna from living a normal life. Levi would usually stay quiet during these conversations, but I could see he was getting uncomfortable with the tension. Things came to a head 3 weeks ago at Levi's birthday party. Hazel had volunteered to make the cake, and she assured us she would make something Luna could eat. When we arrived at their apartment, Hazel presented this elaborate chocolate cake that she claimed was completely sugar-free and diabetic-friendly. She had written down all the ingredients and showed me her calculations for the carbohydrate content. I looked at the ingredient list and something seemed off. She had used several different sweeteners that I wasn't familiar with, plus she had added dates and sweet potato puree. When I asked her about the specific carb counts for these ingredients, she became defensive. She said she had researched everything carefully and I should trust her professional knowledge. Mark was giving me looks that said I should just let it go to avoid conflict. Luna was excited about having a piece of cake that looked normal instead of her usual sugar-free alternatives. William was already eating his slice and saying how good it was. I decided to let Luna have a small piece, but I told Hazel I would need to monitor Luna's blood sugar closely afterward. Within an hour of eating the cake, Luna's blood glucose meter was showing readings that were climbing rapidly. I gave her a correction dose of insulin, but her numbers kept going up. 2 hours later, she was at dangerously high levels and starting to feel sick. We had to take her to the emergency room where they determined she was going into diabetic ketoacidosis, which can be life-threatening. The doctors got Luna stabilized, but she had to stay in the hospital overnight for monitoring. While we were there, I did some research on my phone about the ingredients Hazel had used. It turned out that several of them had much higher carbohydrate contents than she had calculated. The dates alone had enough natural sugars to spike Luna's blood sugar significantly. When we got home from the hospital, I was exhausted and worried. Luna was okay but shaken by the experience. William was scared because he thought his sister might die. Mark was quiet and wouldn't talk about what had happened. Levi called the next day to check on Luna. I explained what the doctors had found about the cake ingredients. Instead of apologizing, Levi got defensive and said Hazel had worked really hard on that cake. He said mistakes happen and we shouldn't blame Hazel for trying to help. I told him that this wasn't just a mistake. Hazel's overconfidence in her nutritional knowledge had put our daughter in the hospital. That's when Levi said something that made my blood run cold. He told me that Hazel had been doing her own research on Luna's condition and she believed that we were giving Luna too much insulin. He said Hazel thought that if Luna's blood sugar ran a little higher for a while, it might stimulate her pancreas to start working again naturally. She had deliberately used more natural sugars in the cake because she wanted to test her theory. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Hazel had essentially used our daughter as a test subject for her unproven theories. She had lied to us about the cake ingredients and put Luna at serious risk. I told Levi that Hazel was never to prepare food for Luna again, and that we needed a sincere apology for what had happened. Levi said I was overreacting and that Hazel was only trying to help Luna get better. He accused me of being closed-minded about alternative treatments and said that maybe if we weren't so rigid about following doctor's orders, Luna might actually improve. The conversation ended with both of us hanging up angry. Since then, Levi and Hazel have been calling and texting, but not to apologize. Instead, they keep sending articles about people who have supposedly cured type 1 diabetes with natural methods. Hazel left a voicemail saying that she understood we were scared, but fear was preventing us from giving Luna the help she really needed. Mark has been caught in the middle and doesn't want to choose sides. He says Hazel made a mistake but she meant well. He thinks I should accept their apology and move on so the family can heal. But they haven't actually apologized. They've doubled down on their belief that they know better than Luna's doctors. I'm at the point where I don't want Hazel around my daughter at all. I don't trust her anymore, and I'm scared of what she might try next. But Mark says I'm being too harsh and that cutting off his brother will destroy our family relationships. Am I wrong to want to protect my daughter from someone who has already put her in the hospital once? Should I try to forgive Hazel and hope she learned her lesson? I honestly don't know what to do anymore. Update 1: I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. The support meant a lot during a really difficult time. Unfortunately, things have gotten much worse since I last wrote. After my post, Mark and I had several long conversations about boundaries with Levi and Hazel. I thought we had reached an understanding. Mark agreed that Hazel couldn't prepare food for Luna anymore, and that we would only see them in situations where we had complete control over what Luna ate. He said he would talk to Levi about getting Hazel to stop sending those articles about alternative diabetes treatments. For about a week, things were quiet. Then Levi called and said he and Hazel wanted to take us all out to dinner to clear the air. He suggested we meet at a restaurant where Luna could order something safe from the menu. Mark thought this was a good sign that they were ready to respect our boundaries. We met at a family restaurant that we've been to before with Luna. She knows their menu well and there are several dishes she can eat safely. When we arrived, Levi and Hazel were already there with a wrapped gift bag on the table. Hazel said they had brought something special for Luna to show there were no hard feelings. The gift was a cookbook called Healing Diabetes Naturally along with a bottle of cinnamon supplements. Hazel explained that cinnamon had been proven to lower blood sugar and regulate insulin naturally. She said if we gave Luna the supplements daily along with following some of the recipes in the book, we might see real improvement in her condition. I looked at Mark hoping he would step in, but he just sat there looking uncomfortable. I told Hazel that we appreciated the thought, but Luna's treatment plan was working well and we weren't interested in making changes. Hazel's face changed immediately. She said she couldn't understand how we could be so stubborn when our daughter's health was at stake. That's when Hazel said something that made me realize how deep her delusions went. She told me that she had been in contact with 3 different families whose children had type 1 diabetes, and all of them had seen improvements using natural methods. She said these families had been brave enough to reduce their children's insulin doses while adding supplements and dietary changes. According to Hazel, 2 of the children were now completely insulin-free. I asked her how she had found these families. She said she had joined several online groups for parents of diabetic children and had been sharing information about natural treatments. She had been telling people that conventional medical treatment was keeping their children sick and dependent on pharmaceutical companies. I was horrified. Hazel wasn't just endangering Luna, she was spreading dangerous misinformation to other families dealing with this condition. I told her that reducing insulin doses for type 1 diabetics could kill them. She responded that fear was exactly what pharmaceutical companies wanted us to feel so we would keep buying their products. Levi jumped in and said Hazel had spent months researching this topic and had found peer-reviewed studies supporting natural treatments. When I asked to see these studies, Hazel said she had them saved on her computer at home. She promised to email them to us later. Luna had been quietly listening to this conversation while eating her grilled chicken and vegetables. When Hazel turned to her and started explaining how the cinnamon supplements would help her feel more energetic, Luna looked scared and confused. She asked me quietly if she was going to have to stop taking her insulin. That was my breaking point. I told Luna that absolutely nothing was changing about her medication, and then I told Hazel and Levi that this conversation was over. I said we were leaving and that they needed to stop pushing unproven treatments on our family. Hazel started crying and said we were making a terrible mistake. She said she had helped other families and she could help Luna too if we would just listen. Levi put his arm around Hazel and told me I was being cruel and close-minded. He said Hazel was a trained professional and I should at least consider her advice. Mark finally spoke up and said we should all calm down and discuss this rationally. But I was done being rational about people who wanted to mess with my daughter's life-saving medication. I took Luna and William and left the restaurant. Mark stayed behind to talk to his brother. When Mark came home an hour later, he said Levi and Hazel were hurt and confused by my reaction. He said Hazel genuinely believed she was trying to help Luna, and maybe we could find some middle ground where we listened to her ideas without actually changing Luna's treatment. I told Mark there was no middle ground when it came to our daughter's health. Either he was going to support keeping Luna safe from Hazel's dangerous ideas, or he was going to have to choose between his wife and daughter versus his brother and sister-in-law. The next morning, I found the email Hazel had promised to send. It contained links to 3 websites that were clearly not legitimate medical sources. One was a blog by someone selling diabetes supplements, another was a forum post by a parent whose child had supposedly been cured, and the third was an article from a website that promoted various conspiracy theories about modern medicine. I forwarded the email to Luna's endocrinologist and asked for her professional opinion. Dr. Martinez called me that same day. She said the websites contained dangerous misinformation that could seriously harm diabetic children. She was particularly concerned about the forum post that described reducing a child's insulin doses, because the symptoms described in the post actually sounded like the early stages of diabetic ketoacidosis. Dr. Martinez asked if Hazel was a licensed nutritionist or just someone who called herself one. When I looked into it, I discovered that Hazel had taken some online courses and received a certificate, but she wasn't licensed by our state's health department. She legally couldn't provide medical nutrition therapy without supervision from a licensed dietitian. I shared this information with Mark, hoping it would help him understand how unqualified Hazel was to give medical advice. Instead, Mark said I was trying to discredit Hazel because I didn't like her. He said even if she wasn't formally licensed, she still had more training in nutrition than we did. That weekend, Levi called and said Hazel was feeling terrible about the tension in our family. He asked if they could come over to our house so Hazel could apologize properly. Mark encouraged me to agree, saying it might help heal the rift between us. Against my better judgment, I said they could come over Sunday afternoon. I made it clear that there would be no discussion about Luna's medical care and no gifts or supplements brought into our house. They arrived with flowers for me and a regular toy for Luna, a craft kit that had nothing to do with diabetes or health. For the first hour, everything seemed normal. Hazel apologized for pushing too hard and said she understood our concerns. She said she just cared about Luna and wanted her to have every possible option for getting better. Then William innocently mentioned that Luna's blood sugar had been running a little high that week because she was getting over a cold. Hazel's eyes lit up immediately. She said high blood sugar during illness was actually a sign that Luna's body was trying to heal itself naturally. She suggested we might want to reduce Luna's insulin slightly during sick days to let her natural healing processes work better. I stood up and told Levi and Hazel they needed to leave immediately. Hazel started protesting that she was just making a casual observation, not giving medical advice. But I could see that she hadn't changed at all. She was still looking for any opportunity to undermine Luna's medical treatment. As they were leaving, Hazel hugged Luna goodbye and whispered something in her ear. After they left, I asked Luna what Hazel had said. Luna looked worried and told me that Hazel had said she should pay attention to how she felt after taking insulin because her body might be trying to tell her she didn't need as much. That night I called Levi and told him that Hazel was no longer welcome in our home or around our children. I said if he wanted to see us, he could visit alone, but Hazel's obsession with changing Luna's medical care had crossed too many lines. Levi said I was tearing the family apart over misunderstandings and personality conflicts. He said Hazel cared more about Luna than I realized, and someday I would regret pushing away someone who was trying to help. Mark has been sleeping in the guest room since the conversation. He says I've put him in an impossible position and he doesn't know how to fix things with his brother. But I refuse to compromise when it comes to protecting my daughter from someone who could seriously harm her. Update 2: I wish I could say things had gotten better, but the situation with Hazel has escalated in ways I never expected. The events of the past few weeks have shown me just how deep her obsession with Luna goes. After I banned Hazel from our house, Levi continued visiting alone for a while. Mark seemed relieved that he could maintain a relationship with his brother without the constant tension around Hazel. Levi would come over for dinner or weekend barbecues, and everything felt relatively normal. But I started noticing that Levi would ask a lot of questions about Luna's daily routine. He wanted to know what time she checked her blood sugar, when she took her insulin shots, and what she ate for her snacks. At first, I thought he was just trying to understand her condition better. He had never shown much interest before, so I was actually pleased that he seemed to care. It wasn't until Luna mentioned something strange that I realized what was really happening. She told me that Uncle Levi had been asking her private questions about how insulin made her feel and whether she ever felt like she didn't need it. He had also been telling her stories about kids who had gotten better from diabetes by eating different foods. When I confronted Levi about this, he claimed he was just making conversation with his niece. But I could tell he was uncomfortable. I told him that discussions about Luna's medical condition were off limits, and if he couldn't respect that boundary, he wouldn't be welcome either. Levi stopped visiting after that conversation, but the problems didn't end there. Luna started receiving packages addressed specifically to her. The first one contained a children's book about a girl who cured her diabetes by eating only natural foods. The second package had vitamin gummies that were supposed to support pancreas function. Each package included a note saying it was from someone who cared about her health. The packages weren't signed, but it was obvious they came from Hazel. When I called Levi to ask him to make Hazel stop, he claimed he didn't know anything about packages. He said maybe Hazel was trying to maintain a connection with Luna since I had cut off all other contact. I told Levi that sending medical supplements to a child without her parents' permission was completely inappropriate. He said Hazel was just trying to show she cared, and maybe if I wasn't so hostile toward her, she wouldn't have to resort to mailing things. The packages kept coming. Luna received herbal teas, sugar-free candies made with questionable ingredients, and even a glucose meter that Hazel claimed was more accurate than the one prescribed by Luna's doctor. I had to explain to Luna that she couldn't use any of these items because they weren't part of her treatment plan. Luna started asking why Aunt Hazel kept sending her things she couldn't use. She wondered if there was something wrong with the medicine her doctors gave her. I realized that Hazel's campaign was making Luna doubt her medical care, which was exactly what I had been trying to prevent. I decided to involve Luna's school to make sure Hazel couldn't contact her there. I spoke with the principal and Luna's teacher about the situation. They agreed to screen any packages or visitors and to call me immediately if anyone tried to discuss Luna's medical condition with her. 2 weeks later, the school called. Hazel had shown up during lunchtime claiming to be Luna's aunt who needed to bring her forgotten medication. She had a bottle of cinnamon capsules and insisted that Luna was supposed to take them with her lunch. The office staff followed protocol and refused to let Hazel see Luna, then called me immediately. When I arrived at the school, Hazel was still in the parking lot. She approached me and said she had been trying to help Luna because her blood sugar readings were probably inaccurate. She had somehow obtained Luna's glucose log from the previous month and was analyzing the numbers. According to Hazel, Luna's readings were too stable, which meant the insulin was suppressing her body's natural healing abilities. I asked Hazel how she had gotten Luna's medical information. She said Levi had taken photos of Luna's glucose meter one day when he was visiting and had shared them with her so she could provide professional analysis. That revelation shook me more than anything else that had happened. Levi had been secretly gathering Luna's private medical data and sharing it with Hazel. They had been working together to undermine Luna's treatment behind our backs. I drove straight to Levi's workplace and confronted him in the parking lot. He admitted that he had been sharing information with Hazel because he was worried about Luna too. He said Hazel had convinced him that Luna's doctors might not be giving her the best possible care, and they needed more information to help us understand our options. Levi said Hazel had been in contact with a naturopathic doctor who specialized in reversing diabetes in children. This doctor had reviewed Luna's glucose logs and believed there was a good chance Luna could be weaned off insulin if we followed a specific protocol involving diet changes and supplements. I told Levi that he had violated our trust and put Luna at risk by sharing her private medical information. He said he was trying to save Luna from a lifetime of dependency on insulin injections. He believed Hazel had found a way to actually cure Luna instead of just managing her condition. When I got home, Mark was waiting with a serious expression. Levi had called him and explained his side of the story. Mark said his brother was genuinely trying to help Luna, and maybe we should at least meet with Hazel's naturopathic doctor to hear what he had to say. I couldn't believe Mark was still considering Hazel's ideas after everything that had happened. I told him that if he wanted to risk Luna's life based on advice from someone who wasn't even a real doctor, he could find somewhere else to live while he figured out his priorities. Mark said I was being unreasonable and that my hostility toward Hazel was preventing our family from getting help that could change Luna's life forever. He packed a bag and went to stay with Levi while we both thought about what we wanted to do. That night, Luna asked why Daddy had left and whether it was because she was sick. William wanted to know if we were getting divorced because of Luna's diabetes. I realized that Hazel's interference had spread far beyond just medical issues. She was destroying our entire family. The next day, I took Luna to see Dr. Martinez for her regular appointment. I explained everything that had been happening with Hazel and asked for advice about how to handle the situation. Dr. Martinez was very concerned about the packages Luna had been receiving and the unauthorized sharing of her medical information. Dr. Martinez explained that type 1 diabetes cannot be cured or reversed through diet and supplements. She said the naturopathic approaches Hazel was promoting could cause serious harm or death if families reduced or stopped insulin based on those recommendations. She offered to speak with Mark and Levi to explain the medical facts, but I wasn't sure they would listen. That evening, Hazel called our house directly. She said she knew Mark was staying with Levi and that our marriage was in trouble because of my stubbornness. She offered to back off from Luna's case if I would just agree to one meeting with her naturopathic consultant. She said all she wanted was for Luna to have the chance at a normal life without daily injections. I hung up on her, but she called back immediately. This time she was crying and begging me to consider Luna's future. She said she had spoken with the parents of children who were now insulin-free, and they all said their only regret was waiting so long to try natural treatments. When I hung up again, she sent a text saying she had videos of these children's recovery stories and would email them to me. The videos showed parents talking about their children's improvement after following naturopathic protocols, but I noticed that none of the videos actually showed the children or provided any medical documentation. I forwarded everything to Dr. Martinez, who confirmed that these types of testimonial videos were common in alternative medicine scams. She said families who actually tried these approaches rarely shared the negative outcomes publicly. I realized that Hazel wasn't going to give up on her crusade to change Luna's treatment. She had convinced Levi and possibly Mark that she was trying to save Luna's life. As long as she believed she was on a rescue mission, she would continue finding ways to interfere with Luna's medical care. Update 3. I'm writing this final update because the situation with Hazel has finally reached a resolution, though not the one I had hoped for when this all started. After Mark moved out, I thought having some space might help him see Hazel's behavior more clearly. Instead, the opposite happened. Levi and Hazel convinced Mark that I was the one being unreasonable and that they were Luna's best advocates. Mark started bringing Luna to visit Levi's apartment on his custody weekends, which meant she was around Hazel again despite my objections. The first time this happened, Luna came home with a new glucose meter that Hazel claimed was more accurate than her prescribed one. Luna was confused about which meter she was supposed to use and worried that her regular one might be giving wrong numbers. I had to take her back to Dr. Martinez to confirm that her original meter was working correctly and that Hazel's replacement was actually less reliable. I tried to get a court order preventing Mark from taking Luna around Hazel, but the family court judge said I needed to prove that Hazel posed a direct threat to Luna's safety. The judge viewed the birthday cake incident as a mistake rather than intentional harm, especially since Hazel wasn't trying to hurt Luna according to Mark's testimony. Meanwhile, the packages addressed to Luna continued arriving. Hazel had moved on from supplements to sending books and DVDs about children who had supposedly recovered from various medical conditions through natural healing. She also sent Luna a journal with instructions to write down how she felt after taking insulin so she could track whether the medication was helping or hurting her. Luna started having nightmares about her insulin injections. She would ask me if the medicine was actually making her sicker like Aunt Hazel said. She wanted to know why we couldn't just try the natural treatments for a little while to see if they worked. Hazel's constant messaging was making Luna doubt the medical care that kept her alive. The breaking point came when Luna had a severe low blood sugar episode during one of her weekends with Mark. According to Mark, Luna had been asking questions about whether she really needed all her insulin shots, and he had begun to wonder the same thing. He decided to give her slightly less insulin with her lunch to see what would happen. Luna's blood sugar dropped dangerously low that afternoon. She became confused and shaky, then lost consciousness. Mark had to call an ambulance, and Luna spent another night in the hospital while doctors stabilized her blood glucose levels. While Luna was in the hospital, Dr. Martinez pulled me aside and said she was required to report the incident to Child Protective Services. She explained that deliberately giving a diabetic child insufficient insulin constituted medical neglect, even if the parent thought they were helping. The CPS investigation revealed the extent of Hazel's influence on Mark's decisions. Mark admitted that Hazel had convinced him Luna was receiving too much insulin and that her doctors were keeping her unnecessarily dependent on medication. He had been gradually reducing Luna's doses during his custody weekends to test Hazel's theories. The caseworker interviewed Luna about her living situation and medical care. Luna told them about all the packages from Aunt Hazel and the confusing messages about not needing her insulin. She said she didn't know who to believe about her medicine anymore. CPS determined that Mark could not safely care for Luna while he continued to follow Hazel's medical advice. They suspended his overnight custody and required him to complete a course on type 1 diabetes management before he could have unsupervised visits again. Mark was furious about losing custody and blamed me for involving the authorities. He said I had destroyed our family over a disagreement about treatment approaches. Levi and Hazel were equally upset and claimed I was using the legal system to punish them for caring about Luna. But the CPS intervention had one positive effect. It forced Mark to take a step back from Hazel's influence and really examine what had been happening. The diabetes education course included information about the dangers of alternative treatments and testimonials from families who had lost children to naturopathic protocols. Mark called me after his third class and admitted that he had been wrong to experiment with Luna's insulin doses. He said the instructor had shown examples of websites and testimonials similar to the ones Hazel had been sharing, and he finally understood how manipulative and dangerous they were. Mark asked if we could try marriage counseling to work through what had happened. He said he wanted to rebuild trust and be a good father to Luna, but he didn't know how to repair the damage he had caused. He also said he was ready to cut contact with Levi and Hazel if that's what it took to protect Luna and fix our marriage. I agreed to counseling, but I told Mark that Hazel could never be around Luna again, regardless of what happened with our marriage. Mark said he understood and was prepared to choose Luna's safety over his relationship with his brother. Levi was not happy about Mark's change of heart. He accused Mark of abandoning Hazel when she needed family support the most. He said Hazel had been trying to save Luna's life and didn't deserve to be treated like a criminal for caring too much. The last contact I had with Levi was when he called to tell me that he and Hazel were moving to another state. He said our city held too many painful memories of family members turning against each other. He blamed me for destroying the relationships between all of us and said Hazel was devastated that she couldn't help Luna anymore. I didn't respond to Levi's call, and I haven't heard from either of them since they moved. Luna asks about Uncle Levi sometimes, but she seems relieved that no one is questioning her medical care anymore. She's back to trusting her doctors and following her treatment plan without worry. Mark and I are still in counseling, working through the trust issues created by his decision to experiment with Luna's insulin. Some days are better than others, but we're both committed to making sure nothing like this ever happens again. Mark has learned to recognize manipulative medical misinformation and stands firm against anyone who questions Luna's treatment. Luna is doing well medically and emotionally. Her blood sugar control is excellent, and she stopped having nightmares about her insulin injections. William seems happier now that the adults aren't constantly arguing about medical treatments. I don't know if Levi and Hazel learned anything from this experience. Part of me hopes they found proper support for whatever was driving Hazel's obsession with fixing other people's medical conditions. But mostly I'm just grateful that they're no longer in our lives where they could cause harm to Luna or other children. The whole experience taught me that sometimes protecting your family means being willing to be seen as the unreasonable one. I'm sure Levi and Hazel still tell their version of this story where I'm the villain who prevented them from saving Luna. I can live with that as long as Luna stays healthy and safe. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I saw my Mill with a strange man at the mall and decided to follow her. I never expected to uncover her secret meetings with her ex. I, 32F, have been married to my husband Bob, 34M, for 5 years now, and until recently, I thought we had a great relationship with his parents. My father-in-law David, 60M, has always been incredibly supportive of us. He helped us with the down payment on our house, babysits our 3-year-old daughter Emma whenever we need help, and has generally been the perfect grandfather and father-in-law. My mother-in-law Samantha, 58F, was also great initially, though she could be a bit controlling at times. Some background is needed here. Samantha was previously married to a man named James, 59M, in her early 20s. They were college sweethearts and got married right after graduation. The marriage only lasted 2 years because they wanted different things. Samantha wanted kids immediately, while James wanted to focus on his career first. They divorced, and Samantha met David shortly after. They've been married for 35 years and have 2 children, my husband Bob and his sister Lisa, 31F. I never knew much about James until recently. Samantha rarely talked about her first marriage, and when she did, she always made it sound like it was a mistake of her youth. David never seemed bothered by Samantha's past, and James was never mentioned at family gatherings. Bob and Lisa knew about him but had never met him, as far as I knew. Everything started last month when I was at the Pine Valley Mall. I had gone there to return some clothes and was heading to the food court when I spotted Samantha at the Starbucks. She was sitting with a man I didn't recognize, and something about their interaction caught my attention. They weren't just having a casual conversation. Samantha was laughing at everything he said, touching his arm frequently, and had that flirtatious body language that was impossible to miss. I know I should have probably just walked away, but something felt off. Samantha was supposed to be at her book club that afternoon. She had mentioned it during our Sunday family dinner just 2 days before. I decided to sit at a nearby table and observe them for a while. The man looked to be around Samantha's age, well dressed in a business suit, and they seemed very comfortable with each other. What really set off alarm bells was when he reached across the table and wiped something off her face. It was such an intimate gesture. They spent nearly 2 hours at the cafe, and their behavior became increasingly flirtatious. When they finally got up to leave, I saw them walk to the parking lot together. Before getting into their separate cars, they hugged goodbye, but it wasn't a friendly hug. He kissed her on the cheek, lingering there for a moment, and they held hands while saying goodbye. I took several pictures throughout their meeting because I knew this wasn't normal behavior for a married woman, and I had a feeling no one would believe me without proof. The pictures clearly showed their intimate interactions, the hand touching, the close proximity of their faces while talking, and the goodbye scene in the parking lot. When I got home that evening, I showed the pictures to Bob. He was quiet for a long time before telling me that the man in the pictures was James, his mom's first husband. Bob was shocked because, according to him, his mom had always said she hadn't had any contact with James since their divorce. Over the next few weeks, I started paying more attention to Samantha's schedule. She suddenly had a lot of book club meetings, shopping trips with old friends, and volunteer work at times that seemed odd. I kept track of her excuses and realized she was meeting with James at least twice a week. Sometimes at the mall, sometimes at different restaurants, and once at a park near our house. Bob and I debated about what to do with this information. He was torn between loyalty to his mom and his sense of right and wrong. We both knew David deserved to know the truth, but we also knew this revelation would destroy the family. Bob suggested we confront Samantha first and give her a chance to explain, but I disagreed. If she was willing to lie to her husband of 35 years, she would definitely lie to us. After 3 weeks of watching this continue, I made the decision to tell David. I invited him over when I knew Samantha was at another one of her meetings with James. I showed him the pictures and explained everything I had observed. I also showed him the dates and times I had documented of Samantha's meetings with James. David's reaction was heartbreaking. He just sat there, staring at the pictures, his hands shaking. He kept saying I don't understand over and over. This man had given Samantha everything she ever wanted, a beautiful home, wonderful children, financial security, and unwavering love and support. And this was how she repaid him. That evening, David confronted Samantha. She initially tried to deny everything, but when David showed her the pictures, she changed her story. She admitted to meeting James but claimed they were just friends catching up. She said they had run into each other at a grocery store 6 months ago and had been meeting occasionally to talk about old times. But if they were just friends, why did she lie about where she was going? Why did she hide these meetings from everyone? And why did she act so intimately with him in public? The pictures clearly showed behavior that went beyond friendship. Samantha was furious with me for exposing her. She called me horrible names, said I was a jealous, spiteful person who was trying to destroy her family. She claimed I had misinterpreted everything and was making something innocent look bad. Lisa immediately took her mom's side, saying I had no right to spy on Samantha or interfere in her personal life. Now the whole family is divided. David has moved out of their house and is staying with his brother. Samantha is playing the victim, telling everyone that I'm trying to destroy her marriage out of spite. Lisa won't speak to me or Bob, and Samantha's siblings have been sending us angry messages about how we've ruined their family. Bob supports my decision to tell David, but I can see how much this is hurting him. Ida for exposing Samantha's secret meetings? Should I have just minded my own business? Edit. Some people are asking why I think Samantha and James were having an affair when they were just meeting and hugging. There's more to it than just that. In the pictures I took, you can clearly see them holding hands under the table, and James was kissing her neck at one point. Also, Samantha had been lying to David about where she was going when she met James. If it was just innocent friendship, why lie? Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since my last post, and everything has gotten much worse than I could have imagined. I'm still processing everything that's happened, and it feels like our family is falling apart more each day. After the initial confrontation, Samantha moved in with Lisa, claiming she needed space to figure things out. David stayed at their house, and Bob and I tried our best to support him. David was struggling badly, he wasn't eating properly, wasn't sleeping well, and spent most of his time just sitting in their bedroom looking at old photo albums. It was heartbreaking to see this proud, strong man reduced to such a state. Samantha kept trying to control the narrative. She told everyone that I had misinterpreted innocent meetings between old friends and turned them into something scandalous. She even went to our church and told people there that I was trying to destroy her marriage because I was jealous of her close relationship with Bob. Some people actually believed her, and we started getting cold shoulders from people we'd known for years. Bob was trying to stay neutral at first, supporting his dad while still hoping his mom would come to her senses. He visited Samantha at Lisa's house a few times, trying to understand her side of the story. But each time he came back more frustrated because Samantha would just cry and play victim instead of explaining her actions. Then last week, everything exploded. It happened because of a simple mistake. Lisa accidentally sent a message to our family group chat instead of sending it privately to Samantha. The message read, "Mom, I found a perfect apartment for you and James. It's in the River Heights area, close to his office. His divorce will be final next month, so the timing works perfectly. You can start moving your things gradually before David notices anything missing." The message also had pictures of a luxury apartment attached. Before Lisa could delete it, everyone in the family had seen it. Bob immediately called Lisa, but she denied him access to Samantha. That's when all the truth started coming out. Samantha finally admitted everything. Apparently, she ran into James at a college reunion 6 months ago. According to her, seeing him brought back all her old feelings. They started meeting secretly, and soon realized they were still in love. James confessed that he had regretted letting her go all those years ago, and now that his kids were grown up, he was ready to be with her. The most shocking part was that Samantha had been planning to leave David for months. She and James had it all mapped out. He would divorce his current wife, who had no idea about any of this. They would both sell their houses, and then buy a place together. Samantha had already started moving some of her jewelry and important documents to Lisa's house. When Bob asked Lisa how long she had known about this, she broke down and admitted she'd been helping her mom plan this since the beginning. She had been covering for Samantha's meetings with James, helping her look for apartments, and even helping her set up a secret bank account to transfer money into. Bob was devastated by Lisa's betrayal. They had always been close despite their different personalities. He couldn't understand how his sister could help destroy their family like this. When he asked her why, Lisa said she just wanted their mom to be happy, and she believed Samantha and James were meant to be together. David's reaction to all this was heartbreaking. We were with him when he read Lisa's message, and he just crumbled. He kept asking what he had done wrong, why wasn't he enough, whether Samantha had ever really loved him or if he had just been a replacement for James all these years. He started going through old photos and videos, questioning every happy moment they had shared. The next day, Samantha officially filed for divorce. She didn't even have the decency to tell David personally. He found out when the papers were served to him at work. She's now openly dating James, posting pictures of them together on social media, acting like she's finally found her happiness. Lisa has completely cut off contact with Bob and me. She sent us a long message saying we had no right to interfere in her mom's life and that true love shouldn't be denied just because of societal expectations. She accused us of being judgmental and said if we really loved Samantha, we would want her to be happy. Samantha's side of the family is making our lives miserable. They're spreading rumors about me, saying I fabricated the whole thing because I was jealous of Samantha's wealth and social status. Some of them have even started calling our mutual friends, telling them not to trust me because I'm a homewrecker. Bob is trying to stay strong, but I can see how much this is hurting him. He lost his mom, sister, and half his extended family in one go. He keeps saying he supports my decision to expose the truth, but sometimes I catch him looking at old family photos with tears in his eyes. The only small positive in all this is that David's family has been incredibly supportive. His brother helped him find a good divorce lawyer, and his sister has been coming over every day to make sure he eats properly. They've all made it clear that they still consider Bob and me part of their family, regardless of what happens with Samantha. I still don't regret telling David the truth, but seeing all this pain and destruction makes me understand why people sometimes choose to keep secrets. The weight of knowing you caused this much hurt, even if it was the right thing to do, is heavy to bear. Update 2. 2 months have passed since my initial post, and what we've discovered has shocked us even more than the original affair. Last week, Mary, 62F, Samantha's former college roommate and longtime family friend, reached out to Bob with information that has completely changed everything we thought we knew about Samantha and James's relationship. Mary had been carrying this burden for years but finally decided to come forward after seeing how everything was unfolding. According to her, Samantha and James's relationship never really ended after their divorce. They had been meeting secretly throughout Samantha's entire marriage to David, approximately every 5 to 7 years. The pattern was always the same. They would run into each other at some event or through mutual friends, start meeting secretly, have a brief affair lasting a few months, and then go back to their respective lives. This cycle had been repeating for over 3 decades. Several of Samantha's old friends knew about these encounters but kept quiet to maintain family peace and because they believed Samantha would eventually stop. Mary provided evidence, old photos, letters, and even emails from various years showing Samantha and James together. She had kept everything because she felt guilty about her role in helping them hide their meetings. The evidence showed meetings in 1992, 1998, 2005, 2012, and now 2024. Each time, Samantha would tell David she was going on girls' trips or visiting college friends, while actually meeting James. But the most devastating revelation came when Mary told us about Lisa's paternity. During one of their affairs in 1993, Samantha got pregnant with Lisa. She knew there was a possibility that James was the father, but she never told David. She let him believe Lisa was his daughter and went on raising her as if nothing had happened. This explains so much about Lisa's behavior. We discovered that Samantha had told Lisa the truth about James being her biological father when Lisa was 18. This revelation suddenly made sense of why Lisa had always been so protective of her mother and so willing to help her leave David. She wasn't just helping her mom find happiness, she was helping her biological father too. Bob was devastated by this news and immediately got a DNA test done. The results confirmed that he is definitely David's son, but this knowledge brought him little comfort. The fact that his mother had lied about something so huge for so many years made him question everything about his childhood. When confronted with this information, Samantha's reaction was shocking. Instead of showing remorse or trying to explain, she became defensive. She said she had always loved James more than David, but stayed with David because he was stable, dependable, and good with children. She claimed she did what was best for everyone by keeping the truth hidden. David's reaction to finding out about Lisa's paternity was heartbreaking. This man had spent 31 years loving and raising a daughter who wasn't biologically his, never suspecting anything. He had paid for her education, walked her down the aisle at her wedding, and was a devoted grandfather to her children. Finding out it was all based on a lie has crushed him completely. The revelation has also led David to question everything about his marriage. He's now having his lawyer conduct a forensic audit of all their finances, suspicious that Samantha might have been giving money to James over the years. They've already found some unexplained withdrawals from their joint accounts that coincide with the years Mary mentioned. Lisa's reaction to her paternity becoming public knowledge has been mixed. She's angry at Mary for revealing the secret, but she can't deny anything because she's known the truth for years. She's still supporting Samantha, claiming that biology doesn't matter and that what's important is that David got to be her father for 31 years. Bob hasn't spoken to Lisa since finding out she knew about her paternity and kept it secret. He says he understands why she's sided with Samantha now, but he can't forgive her for watching David love her and care for her all these years while knowing he wasn't her real father. The most surreal part is that Samantha seems to feel no guilt about any of this. When Bob asked her how she could lie to everyone for so many years, she said she was just following her heart and that sometimes love requires difficult choices. She's still living with Lisa and openly dating James, acting as if this was all just an inevitable conclusion to her love story. David is now considering legal action against both Samantha and James for the years of deception. His lawyer is looking into whether James's knowledge of Lisa's paternity and their ongoing affair could impact the division of assets in the divorce. Update 3. It's been 6 months since everything came to light, and the situation has finally reached its conclusion, though not in the way anyone expected. The whole truth has come out, and the consequences have been severe for everyone involved, especially Samantha. The forensic audit David's lawyers conducted revealed shocking financial details. Samantha hadn't just been meeting James over the years, she had been financially supporting him too. They found transfers totaling almost $200,000 from David's retirement savings to various accounts linked to James. Samantha had been systematically stealing from her husband for years, taking small amounts that wouldn't be immediately noticeable. The money trail showed regular transfers coinciding with James's business troubles. Apparently, James wasn't as successful as Samantha had made him out to be. His thriving medical practice had been struggling for years, and Samantha had been helping him stay afloat with David's money. She even helped pay for his children's college tuition while hiding it from David. David's lawyer is now handling both the divorce and criminal charges for financial fraud. Samantha could face serious legal consequences for the theft. She tried to claim that David had known about the transfers, but their financial advisor confirmed that David had never authorized any of these transactions. Samantha and James are living together now, but their perfect reunion isn't going as planned. James's divorce was messy once his wife discovered the full extent of his relationship with Samantha. She got 75% of their assets and primary custody of their teenage children, who want nothing to do with their father or Samantha. James's medical practice is struggling even more now that the scandal has become public in their community. Samantha's reputation has been completely destroyed. Most of her friends have distanced themselves from her, especially after learning about her decades of deception. She's been asked to step down from her position on the church board and the local charity committee she chaired. Even her bridge club, which she'd been part of for 20 years, asked her not to return. The biggest change came in Lisa's behavior. When the financial fraud came to light, she finally started to see her mother's actions clearly. Finding out that Samantha had been stealing money meant for her siblings' college funds was apparently the last straw. She's now talking to David again, realizing that the man who raised her showed more love and integrity than her biological father ever did. Lisa tried to apologize to Bob for her role in everything, but he's not ready to forgive her yet. The revelation that she knew about her paternity for years and watched David love her unconditionally while helping Samantha deceive him is something Bob is still struggling to process. He told her he needs time and distance before he can consider having any relationship with her. David is doing much better now. He's focusing on rebuilding his life and has started traveling with his brother. He's also taking steps to protect his assets and has updated his will to ensure Bob and his grandchildren are provided for. Despite everything, he's still trying to maintain a relationship with Lisa's children, showing what a truly good man he is. Bob and I have gone completely no contact with Samantha. We blocked her on everything after she tried to blame me for destroying her reputation by exposing her affair. She even showed up at our house drunk one night, screaming about how I had ruined her life. We had to call the police to remove her, and now we have a restraining order against her. I still don't regret exposing the truth, even though it caused so much pain. The last 6 months have shown me that sometimes doing the right thing hurts, but living with lies hurts more. Samantha's actions have torn this family apart, but at least now everyone knows the truth and can start healing. David said something the other day that really stuck with me: better to be hurt by the truth than comforted by a lie. After everything that's happened, I couldn't agree more.